Good afternoon. My name is Sharon Quirk-Silva, and I'm a Fullerton City Council member. And as April mentioned, this is my second term, and my topic is All Politics Are Local. Some of you might have heard that phrase, not from me, that is initiated many years ago, but really as far as what does that really mean? I think that many of the words that I just heard Ms. Nguyen mention, which is a campaign for social justice, really, when you think about any of the issues you're interested in, whether it be women's studies, whether it be your garden in your backyard, whether it be your neighborhood, it really comes down to taking action. And for so many people in your local government, a lot of times that doesn't really connect directly to them until something happens, until maybe there's an issue that happens in your neighborhood. Maybe it's something, development that you all of a sudden see appearing before your eyes, and somebody wants to know who made that decision and why are they doing that. So that's how many people get involved. It's usually, it could be next door, the dog barking. So those are usually what happens. But sometimes there's somebody who decides they want to be in politics from the time they're very young. For me, I was really evolved into it. I've been an educator, and I really evolved into it through various jobs I've had. I really did not wake up one morning and decide that I'd like to be the mayor of Fullerton. It kind of just happened. And for many women, that's really what happens. So I can't say I set out to do this. I can say there is an enormous impact that you can make, and some of those things can be as simple as doing this, getting out and meeting and sending a message, but referring back to a campaign. It's really so many of those things you need to do to run a campaign are really what you need to do in your organizations in order to have them be successful. So the first thing, of course, is getting out a message and having somebody listen to that message. And in order to do that, you have to understand why are you running and what do you want to do. And typically, what you're going to spend your time on is not actually what you set out to do. I ran because we felt in Fullerton at that time, and we're looking at almost 10 years ago, that our council was not listening to the community as we were hoping. We also felt that we wanted a council that was going to look at balanced issues, things like libraries, things like parks, neighborhoods. And so when I first decided to run, I actually 2 years before that started a group called NUF. And if you look at the acronym, it's NUF, like we've had enough. And it was actually standing for a political action committee called Neighbors United for Fullerton. And that was really the beginning, and the beginning was really beginning to work on campaigns of others, not my own. And I actually have been an educator, so I worked on supporting my principal who retired for his election to the elementary school board. So like I said, step by step, many of the things like your students did, you had to get out there, you had to learn. We had to learn things as simple as filing for a political action committee. So the very basics to everything, how do you fundraise, these type of issues. But the bigger theme here is, what does it mean to somebody who's maybe right out of graduate school, somebody who could still be, maybe you're in graduate school or you're teaching a course and you still have issues in your city, and you say, like, how do I start? What do I do? And I'd say one of the themes out there is many, many people really don't understand how their cities operate. They really have very little information on what's happening. In matter of fact, one of the things that I found more than ever is we have people who are leading organizations, who are the CEO, who are executive directors, who in other cities that they spend many, many hours, but in their own city, they kind of come home after, hard work, and they have sometimes very little information and very little participation in their own cities. So one of the first things is getting to find out who's on your city council. I would expect if you go up and down your neighborhood, or even you ask yourself, can you name the 5 council members in your city? Do you know what kind of ways to get involved? Those are a lot of things that many people don't know, and for good reason. They're busy. They have jobs, they have children, and so like I said, again, it goes back to maybe you're at the ball field with your child and you're wondering, why is the trash out, or why don't they have lighting? Again, those become personal issues, and it's what typically will get somebody started. So one of the most important things is kind of having a basic awareness, and people's lives, periods of their lives, really generate more when they have additional time. to put into their city. But things that you can do other than just running for council or being elected is getting involved in local commissions. And those commissions in many cities, there can be anywhere between 5 to 20 commissions in each city, anything from being on your Parks and Recreation Commission to your Library Commission to Planning Commission. Those commissions, usually you apply for, you get selected. Most of the time they're not paid for, but it's kind of your first experience in local government. I kind of remember when I did that, I had heard that in our city there was a funding source, CDBG funds, which is Community Development Block Grant funding, and those were given out to nonprofits. And so because I was an educator and I was at that point part of the school district, and we had a grant called Healthy Start, we were looking for funding for various. So that was my first experience. I actually applied, and little did I know at that time that it was competitive, and I was not only appointed to that, but I was appointed to the Parks and Recreation Commission. When I began, I have to say, local government is supposed to be nonpartisan. That means people run, you're not running as a Democrat or a Republican, and very quickly you find out that that's not actually the case. People want to know what your affiliation is, and the moment that is determined, that very often get you a vote, or many times you lose a vote. And it wouldn't matter what you do, because for some people that's very important. But for many people, they really see this as, this is my local government, and I can support that person even if they're a Democrat or even if they're Republican. So that plays a part in it. But serving on a commission really gets you to understand a little bit about how local government works. And then again, there's additional things that people can be involved with. But I would say one of the things that has been important for me, and probably a very good message from the first time I was elected, which is I, as a woman, have my first 2 years been the only woman, and then I was lucky enough to have a friend that was elected alongside of me, so we served together to 4 years, and she's chosen not to run again, so now I'm back to being the only woman. So not only being the only woman, but to be a Latina is very rare. Many times I spend my time in boardrooms, in chambers, with probably 10 to 15 men, because many times even department heads in cities, like city, they're men. Very, very few women in those roles. So it isn't often that when I'm in these meetings that I'm sitting with 2, 3, even 4 women. Once in a while there will be a female lawyer, but often it's myself and many men, who many of them are, depending on their age, very happy to work with me. Many times, depending on their age, you get it just really depends. I've seen a lot in politics. And I'll tell you, the men over 65, I get a lot of the dolls and how you doing, honey, and this kind of thing. They really like to do the, you're doing a good job, the little pat on the back, but they have a very hard time kind of seeing me as somebody who has the same voting power as them. I'd say the younger men tend to be a little bit more accepting of that, but no matter what you do, there's always a little bit of, it's not typical for them to have to engage with somebody like me. And so sometimes I get, oh, you're there for that neighborhood. We know you like those people. So, you know, we've broken some barriers, but there's some still real ingrained attitudes. And so what I see myself as being there for 2 or 3 reasons that I think have made an impact. And like I said at the very beginning, one of the best advice I was given is, even if you're one vote on a council, and you're never in the majority, which I've never been in the majority on this council, I'm going into my 7th year, it changes the conversation in the way the people that sit there with you have to interact in public. Now, in closed doors, I can tell you it's much different, and that should always be filmed, and I'd be the first to advocate for closing closed doors, filming. But in our council, we're filmed. And so what it means that on any vote, the additional people sitting there have to now think about the response. It's not just a given that there's a majority. And when that is, it changes the power of what you do or what I do because now they can't, they may choose not to remark on why they vote a certain way, but many times they're having to give a reason. And I have seen their votes change because now there's somebody who's out there speaking on behalf. The other thing that I feel that I've been very, very effective in doing, and it's really probably, I think it's ultimately had huge rewards, and that is being accessible to the community. And many times, and I will tell you myself, I have not been in politics for, I have 4 of my own children, so a decade ago, I would have been somebody who said, who's on the city council? I wouldn't have been able to name, I probably would recognize 2 of the names. So this has been evolved over time, but some of the first things that I noticed is people had a real fear of coming to the city hall. Typically when they come, they're not happy. There's something wrong. And many times when they come, they don't get the information that they're looking for. So they don't have a great experience. And typically a mayor will have office hours, but it means going through some type of scenario to get an appointment. And so one of the first things that I did, mayor or not mayor, as a council member, has been to reach out. I've created several programs that have been about getting out of the city hall and getting into the community, and in essence inviting the public to meet and greet under many formats. One of my first things was called walk-in talks, where I went into many, many neighborhoods over a year, once a month, same time, different neighborhoods, and I will tell you, in every neighborhood, a different issue, something that, one neighborhood might not recognize. This neighborhood, they're dealing with it every day. So over a year, I spent moving from neighborhood to neighborhood. And what was interesting is I actually found that not only did people become interested in their own neighborhood, meeting their neighborhoods, but they were interested in others. And several of the people would come to each one. So I had a few people who actually went to every single one. And they said they just love learning about other neighborhoods. Secondly, I would do these things that would be on a Saturday morning, so people who are working would have access. Another thing is changing the time of our council meetings. They used to have our sessions start at 5 o'clock, which is a very difficult time, again, for working people to come out and be involved. So we changed those to 6:30. A little bit of grumbling at the beginning, and now we just do it. I've also had what I would call meet your local government in this sense, but it would be meet your fire chief, meet your city manager, meet your parks and recreation director. And people have really responded to those, having simple questions like, why are you spending money on improving a football field when we have a budget crisis? Then we can talk about the way our budgets are spent. Why do we do that? Why are you cutting this service? So many conversations, and that's what I called them, a series of conversation with your department heads. In addition to that, I have had regularly coffee hours that I call time to catch up in various coffee places. And again, some of the same people who know everything about our government, but some faces that I've never met. And when they come, they're always, thank you for doing this. I've had this issue. And what it's taught me is how things escalate with really no reason. Somebody may have an issue of a tree hanging over their fence, and from neighbor to neighborhood, many times these things escalate. They're looking for someone to help solve it. Sometimes typical responses are, well, we can't do that. And many times there's things that we can do. We can't always take care of things, but what we can do is listen. As mayor, immediately you receive all the phone calls. As a council member, you receive some and you get the emails. But as mayor, they immediately want to talk to the mayor. And many times I would call back, and some of the first comments I would get would be, thank you for calling. Like, I really appreciate that you call. Sometimes I'd have to hold the phone like this for the first 5 minutes because they were really angry because nobody had talked to them. And usually by about 5-6 minutes into it, they'd say, okay, thank you for listening to me, and then we could work on solving the problem. Can't always solve every problem, but many times there's things that we need, we say, why can't we get this fixed? Call up somebody and it can be fixed. So that's just a lesson. Make sure that if you have a problem, you're persistent, because unfortunately, whether it's a restaurant or a department store, there's people who can solve the problem, and there's some people who don't want to, and so you just got to work at finding the person who can solve the problem. So some of these little things that seem little, I think, have created, in an era where we have some really negative examples of what can happen in city government, I feel extremely proud that we've done things like open up our area of noticing. If you have a development, typically there's a very small area where people need to be noticed, and now they know I'm a broken record, where it's like, not only do we notice who we need to, but let's expand that. Things like public comments, making sure people have not only the opportunity to speak, but they're allowed the full time. If something is moved in, what I don't believe is a public process, emergency item, and we haven't, the public doesn't know about it, then I'm going to be the first to say, I don't want to hear about it until the public knows about it. So those are the transparency issues that I do think that I'm known for standing up for, and I think that they can make a difference in your local government. But to wrap it up, I would say if you're interested in doing any of those things, that's the key word. You have to be interested. And as a public school teacher, I like to use kind of words, key words. So I'd say you have to be willing to take the initiative. You have to show the interest. The public is going to respond if they see that you're interested. You have to be able to talk to the public about the issues that you're interested in. But bottom line, I think once you're in government for long enough, you do have to have integrity, because it is very, very easy to fall into these scenarios where you have seen people, public officials, not only prosecuted, but basically doing the wrong thing. And some of those things happen because it's about relationships. The lobbyists realize, hey, if I meet with you enough, there's going to be a point where you're going to start to say, okay, that doesn't look too bad. And so as I started the conversation of a campaign, it's really the campaign of life, because it's the same thing with whatever you're out there passionate about. It's really running a campaign, and you become the lobbyist for it. But in the end, it's having the integrity and the passion to continue to get your message across, to make sure that you are moving in a pathway that's transparent, that's fair, and that benefits others. So I've enjoyed serving. I have 2 more years, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do after that, but I certainly have a day job that keeps me busy as a public school teacher at the school that I attended as a child. And I'd say the last thing is that a lot of these things come from basically growing up with a model, which is my mom right here, family of 10, and it just really, it just really shows you that if you have those models out there and those people that show you that, you keep moving forward, that really all of you can get to where you need to be and where you want to be. So thank you.